Radio 418.
What's up, beautiful people? This is John Montagna, and you're listening to Radio 418. Thank you so much for checking in on the podcast again. This is my show where I talk to my fellow musicians about the life in music, and this is a great one, if I do say so myself. This is another archive episode from the old feed to the new one, powered by Podbean at radio418.com. Howard Kaylan of the Turtles and Flo and Eddie. This one dates back to 2013, the first year that I started interviewing the principal artists and on the Happy Together tour as the bassist in the house band. And, I wanted to get to the bottom of what makes those guys tick. I was 41 years old at the time, and looking at the rest of my life, what kind of a man I wanted to become in my 60s and 70s, and I was looking at these guys who were all in their mid-60s, closing in on 70, some of them, and still full of energy and vitality and loving what they do and loving their life and living their life with grace and dignity and class and sounding great on stage as well. And I wanted to get to the bottom of that, of what makes those guys tick. So they were all incredibly gracious and generous with their time and their wisdom, and they shared a lot of great insights with me over that summer. So I'm going to start reposting those from the old feed, bringing them up to date here. And Howard is one of those guys that I knew our conversation was going to be deep, man, because it always is. A lot of late nights and early mornings hanging out with that guy. And Howard has no time for bullshit. Howard has been there, done that, seen it, done it all. If you're cool and you have your shit together and you're straight with yourself and everyone around you, he's your buddy. He's a great hang. If you're full of shit, he will call you out on it quickly. As he should. As anyone should. I think now more than ever, man, it's time to call bullshit when we see it. I'll get to that in a minute. I don't like to get political. I don't like to get topical. But I got to address Charlottesville, Virginia. First, a little bit of bees and knees. Let me take care of the bees and knees first. Saturday, September 2nd, 8 p.m., the Godfrey Townsend Band appearing at Daryl's House in Pawling, New York. If you're in the New York State region, Godfrey Townsend Band, Saturday, September 2nd, 8 p.m., Daryl's House, 130 Route 22 in Pawling, New York, Pawling. Of course, the Godfrey Townsend Band. Godfrey Townsend on guitar, Steve Murphy on drums, Manny Focarazzo on keys, your boy here on the bass. These are my brothers from the road. We've been traveling the world and elsewhere for a decade and a half, from the Alan Parsons Live Project to the Happy Together tours, hippie fests, countless gigs here at home. And I love those guys, and I love playing with those guys. And we're going to be doing our tribute to the music of Eric Clapton on Saturday, September 2nd at Daryl's House. Clapton is Godfrey. One more time for the world. Godfrey Townsend Band, Saturday, September 2nd. 8 p.m. DarylsHouseClub.com for tickets to that one. DARYLS houseclub.com for tickets for that. Also want to mention culturesonar.com. This is the website that I've been writing for, doing some freelance writing. Got a couple of pieces up there since the spring. I think I started writing for them. And my latest is the 7-Day Fusion Challenge. I took a week where I listened to a different Fusion album all the way through. One a day, every day for 7 days. We can go back and forth on what constitutes fusion, but you know what I'm talking about. Jocko, Weather Report, Herbie Hancock, Stanley Clarke, John McLaughlin, Tony Williams. You know, the good stuff. go check out the piece, culturesonar.com, culturesonar.com. I believe the 7-Day Fusion Challenge piece is still on the main homepage at culturesonar.com. Otherwise, go into the, do a little work. Go to the search bar, the search window thing, and type in Fusion 7-Day Challenge or whatever. It's a good piece, if I do say so myself. And it was good for the soul to check out some of the best and brightest musicians that the human race had to offer. Many of whom are still around, obviously. Why am I rambling like this? I can't let this show go by without talking about Charlottesville, Virginia. And I don't like to get political on this podcast. I try to avoid it because there are people who are far more informed than I am, far more articulate than I am, but I think our nation is going through some growing pains, friends. And I think we might be in one of those times where politics kind of permeates everything for a little while. And if that's what we got to do to cleanse the soul of this nation again, that's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to say her name, Heather Heyer, killed by a Nazi driving a car into a crowd of people. This mouth breather, this blockhead, 20-year-old who lives with his mother. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. I don't care who you voted for, what side you're on. There is no playing devil's advocate with this. I will not be responding to any comments that you leave. I will not be tolerating any, technically if if Obama did or if Hillary, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. My grandfathers fought a war to eradicate this virus, and it's a disgrace that we have allowed it to re-mutate 2 generations later. You don't get to be an American and a Nazi at the same time. I'm sorry. Doesn't work. We were just in Virginia, which is why this kind of stings a certain way for us. We took a family vacation last week to Colonial Williamsburg and to Mount Vernon in Alexandria, Virginia. My daughter is obsessed with the Hamilton musical, as many young people are these days, which gives me some hope for the future. And so we wanted to do an American history themed thing, and Virginia was a quick drive. And, it's amazing. I mean, they have the actors there portraying all the characters and everything like that. And, they give these talks where the characters get up and, discuss their positions on certain things from back in the day. When the Marquis de Lafayette walked onto the stage, my daughter's face lit up like it was Justin Bieber or something like that. It was great. And yes, you get a taste of 18th century life. You see the old printing press and the old blacksmith and the old coffee shop and all that kind of business. But beyond that, to be in the rooms where these guys stood, to see where they were, where they ate, where they slept, the rooms where they made the plans to fight the British to the death for freedom in the name of democracy, and all those terms that we like to throw around. To actually be in the place where it went down, I was really surprised at how moved I was. And to see how these guys lived free of technology, free of a 24-hour news cycle full of talking heads spewing their subtle kind of talking points and agendas and their dog whistles and all that kind of nonsense. It really hit home what this nation is all about, what the core principles of this country are all about. And I would recommend it to any and every American. We stood in George Washington's foyer in his house, And the tour guide said, yeah, so if Thomas Jefferson would have walked through that door and would have been escorted into that room to discuss military strategies. You know, the British outnumbered us 10-1, and we still had a fight to the death and won our independence. And that's what it's about. And it was pretty spectacular. And like I said, I would recommend it to any American. Say her name again, Heather Heyer. Can't believe we're even doing this right now. But I guess, like I said, the nation is going through some growing pains. And politics is going to be infiltrating everything for a minute. So I look forward to better and brighter days for the future of this nation. And that's all I want to say about that. I want to get into my interview with Howard Kaylan. Like I said, summer of 2013, I was just starting to interview folks. Still finding my way as a guider of conversations. But Howard was very gracious. It was late at night. It was a long travel day. The band and the crew, I think, had been in the bus for like 12 hours or something. So by the time we got to Howard's hotel room, we were both a little tired. But like I said, a lot of late nights up talking to that guy. And he did not disappoint. We talked about the music business. We talked about the past. We talked about the future. We talked about life. We talked about his friend Harry Nilsson. We talked about his book, Shell Shocked, which had just come out, his autobiography, Shell Shocked, which you should definitely check out for a life in rock and roll. I'm not going to waste any more time. I want to get right into this. This is Howard Kaylan.
Radio 480.
Thank you, everybody.
We know you know the words. Sing along.
Come on. Come on. Imagine I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold you tight, so happy together. If I should call you out, invest your time, and you say you belong to me, and here's my mind, imagine the world you do, so very fine, so happy together. I can't see the love of the body but you for all my life. I wonder if the skies will be blue for all my life. Anything spontaneous is better than anything edited.
Right.
It just is. I mean, you're going to get people at their best and at their worst.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you want.
Right.
Besides, who made you God? I mean,
Right.
Who is it that decided that, well, I'm going to use this answer and this question because it's more relevant? Well, maybe the pauses and the mistakes are a lot more relevant.
That's
You know, you get to learn more about the person that you're listening to by what they don't say sometimes.
well. There was a huge gap in the Puckett interview
How
when
funny.
I asked him, so what inspired, and I ask everybody, what inspires you now?
Oh,
and
God.
he took a breath.
Here we go. Did he
And
cry? Come on, did he cry? He did, didn't
He got a little choked up at one point, but then so did Lindsay. At one point.
Uh-huh. Well, that's not going to happen here.
I don't want. It's okay.
won't.
This is not the Make the Principals Cry show.
No, I mean, Barbara Walters did that. She made a career out of it.
Yeah, but that's not my intention. Is to But
I would be, very curious to know if you could find a topic that could make me that upset. Unless it was like animal cruelty or
Well,
something.
it wasn't. It wasn't like. It was more of like. With Lindsay, it was about. He was telling me about when he met his wife.
See, I would say which one.
Okay.
My story's different, that's all. I mean, that's
Okay.
why I had to write it, because it's so stupid. I mean, some of the quote-unquote adventures are just so stupid.
Why do you say that they're stupid? We're talking to Howard Kaylan, by the way. It's already started.
Just because in the real world or to real people, these things would never happen. But I believe because Mark and I both hit the pop star world rather young, that we really kind of grew up
in it, and we
Okay.
just didn't know any better.
Right.
You know, while other kids were trying to, would you like fries with that? We were already, hiding weed and performing for the big shots and doing TV and quite advanced, I think, for our age bracket. Looking back at it now, the Turtles broke up when I was 22.
Jesus.
So when you consider that, my God, my life is over probably at this point, because I'm not qualified.
22.
Yeah, I'm not qualified or trained to do anything
Right.
else, nor did I have any desire to do anything else. The only thing I wanted to do from the earliest possible age was to be in the show business. And I never could accept anything else. I wouldn't. So I constantly fought with my parents about it. Because it was always the fallback. What are you going to do? What are you going to do if it doesn't work?
Even after you were 22, like even after you
No, not
okay.
so much.
Okay.
They trusted me at that point because I had already made one correct decision that they couldn't believe.
Sure.
That boggled their brain, but
Sure.
at least got them a trip to Hawaii in a car and a TV set.
Uh-huh.
So they were very
tangible
respectful.
evidence that you knew what you were talking about.
Well, you could, my mom could tell the neighbor, my son, and, she couldn't say my son, the doctor, my son, the lawyer, but she could say, tune into Ed Sullivan next weekend because my son.
Right.
And that held a lot of weight in our little community.
Let me ask you this. As I'm talking to the principals and all the research that I'm doing about that time, I'm getting the sense that there was no template for the rock star as we know it today. The business of rock and roll was not. It was still new, and people didn't know. Like today, we were looking at the bus. Murphy showed me a picture of the Beatles at Candlestick Park, and he's like, "Why the hell are they all the way at second base?"
Nobody knew better.
Nobody knew better, exactly. And what I'm wondering is for you to say to your parents at that time, like, no, I'm going to make it doing that. Did that really exist before that point? Like the kind of stardom that you guys knew, the success in showbiz that you guys
Probably
knew?
not, but I didn't care if my success was rock and roll based. I was just as interested in Soupy Sales as I was in Bobby Darin. So
Okay.
that
That knocks about 3 questions off of my list. Right there.
And I didn't know what part in it I would play.
Okay.
I didn't know if I would be the performer. I imagined I would.
Yeah.
But I didn't really fit, even at an early age, any of the criteria for these people that were already stars when I was a little kid growing up and stuff and watching Dick Clark on TV, and there was Frankie Avalon and Fabian and all
Okay.
Bobby Rydell and these guys with this incredible hair, and they were all skinny, and that was sort of what the girls were. And that's what they did since Sinatra, and that's what they did before Sinatra.
Sure.
That was always the template. If there was one,
Okay.
it was going to be the skinny crooner or
Right.
whatever was Bobby Sox friendly
Sure.
to that groupie kind of era.
But rock bands were still new.
There was no such thing,
Right.
so I couldn't have aspired to that. It was the era of the Bobbies and the Jimmies.
Mm-hmm.
It was the beach party movies.
Right.
And already I didn't fit in. Because Jimmy Darin, those guys, they were, for the time, they weren't pumped, but they were pretty buff, they were young, they were cute, they were studio kids.
Right.
And I knew studio kids. I knew other studio kids. I used to go out with the little girl who was a studio kid.
When you say studio kid, what does that
She
mean?
was a Mouseketeer.
Oh, okay.
And to me, I thought that was as close to showbiz as I was ever going to get.
Right, okay.
Was a 12-year-old dating another 12-year-old who was a Mouseketeer.
Okay.
That was cool to me.
Yeah, sure.
And especially coming from the East Coast and just, boy, watching Disneyland, the physical place in California being built on television, and knowing that I didn't stand the chance of a fart in the thresher, as we used to say, to ever see that place. Because it was 3,000 miles,
All the way
and
in
my
California,
father's
sure.
and my father's job was in Utica, New York.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to go there just because of Disneyland, truly.
Yeah,
I didn't
okay.
have the Hollywood dream because
Okay.
I thought I didn't think that success was geographical.
Okay.
I couldn't equate myself to that. I remember at a very young age being brought to be an audience member by my parents to see the Phil Silvers show.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember the episode, and I just saw the episode not long ago, and
nice.
I put it on the DVR and then disked it, and went, look at this.
Which
look at
one
this.
was it?
It was the very episode where Ernie Bilko, the platoon, decides to play a trick on him and tries to convince him that he's growing hair. They glue a wig onto his head at night, and he wakes up in the morning, and he's, his barber, the genius, rubbed something in, and now all of a sudden, he's got hair.
Okay.
And as a little kid, that was the kind of stuff that just cracked me up,
Sure.
as did Jerry Lewis.
Uh-huh.
Crack me up.
Sure.
And it was showbiz. And on other trips into New York City, which we would take all the time because that's where my grandfather lived and all my dad's sisters and stuff,
Yeah.
we would stand in front of 30 Rock, or more likely One Rock, whatever that is, where they do the news show, and watch the Today show with Dave Garroway.
Okay.
Dave freaking Garroway. And he had a monkey with him, man.
Uh-huh.
He had a chimp.
Wow.
J. Fred Muggs was the name of the chimp.
Right, okay. I've heard of it.
He had a weather girl named Molly B, who was a singer, who would grow up to have hit records, and she wound up on the Pinky Lee show.
Okay.
But this is stuff that nobody knows but the old cockers that are still fucking around, and at the age of 66...
You and my stepfather.
Yeah. I'm the last, or next to the last of a, bye-bye generation, which is cool because now all the things that I've said all my life, I can say with impunity. Now no one gives a fuck, if the old codger says something a little eccentric. But when I said it at the age of 17, they'd go, hey, shh, come on, man.
What kind
Shut
of
up.
things were you saying at 17?
Fuck you, you're an idiot.
Oh, okay. Just the
my normal stuff.
general, just a sense of rebellion and anti-establishment.
No, not rebellion.
So what
not
was it?
Establishment, John.
So what is it?
Contempt.
For what? For whom?
For ineptitude, for the
Okay.
most part.
Okay.
At a very early age, I saw people that just could not deliver on their promises, or teachers that weren't good. Or
Hypocrisy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hypocrisy. And it drove me crazy. And I commented on it all my life long. And it made more of a big deal out of road situations than they needed to be.
I see.
Because I was the guy going, hey, wait a minute, but not necessarily saying it to the band, saying it to the, guy at the desk.
I see.
Hey, listen, pal, what do you mean I don't have a fucking room? I paid for a fucking room. I'm going to keep it down, man.
Right,
no,
right.
I'm not going to.
Don't
I
cause
was
trouble.
that guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was that guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think I'm so much that guy anymore, but it's difficult to tell on a tour like this because everything is done for you. Certain things are better on other days than other days.
Right.
Some
but
days
at the
than
same
others.
time, it ain't Bon Jovi either. I mean, it's a pretty lean.
Listen,
Not in a bad way,
Never
though.
going to be Bon Jovi for us. The fact that Mark and I, if there's any genius to this act at all, it's to be able to take a group who was marginally successful 50 years ago and make them bigger today than they were.
Well, this brings up something I wanted to ask you about. Because I talked to Mark, had a great conversation with him, and he talked about managing the Turtles all these years and how the upside for that is that he kept a lot of money in your guys' pockets doing that. But he feels like he couldn't do that and simultaneously sort of maintain the legacy. And now he's thinking in terms. And I said to him, "You don't think the Turtles' legacy is intact or is as big as it should be?" He goes, "No, I don't." And like I think that was part of the impetus for putting this tour together was to kind of, give the Turtles their due or something like that. And I wanted your
kind of right.
I wanted your take on that. Like, are you concerned about the legacy of the Turtles, I mean, you've got many legacies.
I'm not the least bit concerned about the legacy of the Turtles.
Okay.
I think the music speaks for itself. It has to.
And there you go.
To a certain degree, you can only hype yourself, and then there's a brick wall. If you can't deliver on your promises, then it really doesn't matter what you say you did once.
Okay.
You know, you're just, it's hearsay at this point, you know, from a long, long time ago. I know acts that are still out there and big and never sounded good. They weren't good in the 60s, and they're not good now.
So you're more concerned with just putting out quality shit?
I'm really more concerned. In fact, very little concerns me, John. Let me tell you the honest truth.
Okay.
As far as performances are concerned, I don't worry about them whatsoever. As you may know, I'm not the guy who warms up vocally. I never have. I never will be. We don't rehearse. We don't do sound checks.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I just feel that, you know, especially going on last.
I saw you at rehearsal once.
It must have been like early on in the tour.
2010.
You know? Yeah.
At Chumash, we had one rehearsal with you guys, and you were seated.
I just figured, look, like I said to you before you turned on the little thing there, I'm not a musician. I know musicians. I have musicians who are friends, but I'm a singer.
Right.
And if somebody else, especially 4 other singers, have gone, chew, sibilance, testing, what the fuck am I going to do for a sound check? Really? I mean,
don't
seriously.
Think yeah, but at the same time, you come out every single time I've done your show, you've sounded good. You give 1,000% every time.
That's what I'm here for.
You're always an asset. You're never a liability, right? Every single time.
Hopefully.
I never look, oh, fuck, Howard, oh my God, what's going to... Like, you sound good every time. You do good every time. So... as far as the legacy is concerned, you're more concerned with just, I'm out here doing a job. If people want to talk about the Turtles as this, that, or the other, that's their business.
I think the fact that people are talking about us at all is a bloody fucking miracle. And that is the PR that we have done over the past 40 years out of this 50 that have made, as I said before, the Turtles appear to be larger than we were. If you go through the actual amount of hit records that everybody on this particular tour, in fact, has had, you will find that the people with the fewest would be us.
Okay.
And the fewest repeats in the number one category, and the few. I mean,
right. Statistically,
success is success. We had 3 separate, very good runs as the Turtles, but we had 3 down periods as well. We had as many bad times as good times. That's why this tour doesn't seem like a downer to me. You're right. We're not Bon Jovi. But for that, I think I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I don't want to change places with John. I mean, let him be the outlaw. You know, on the dark horse he may ride, but I got a Lexus, and I don't care about his.
Well, I'm using Bon Jovi as the image of a tour where there's like 6 people.
And
like
a
the
nostalgia
fact that,
act.
Well, that's true. But I mean, the fact that like I'm texting you directly saying, "Can I come up to your room?" and I don't have to go through like 6 handlers telling me, "Well, Howard isn't really up to it right now."
That's a Bowie thing. I mean, if you can really afford 6 handlers, then you are so living in a fantasy world that you're Miley Cyrus and you're paying people to tell you how good you are.
Right.
I don't ever want to be in. It's too late. I will never be in that situation. And neither will Mark. We know too much.
Right.
And we know too many people. And we've seen too much.
And you've been there.
Been there,
You've
done
been there,
that.
and it didn't turn out too well.
It didn't turn out too bad. But when everybody says, we're going to, we're play in the White House. I'm not impressed. And, we got a TV thing coming on. That's great.
Were you ever impressed with that shit? Holy shit, we're going to be. Okay.
Are you kidding?
All right.
The first time round. But it's like bell bottoms. If you wore them then, don't wear them now. You're an asshole.
Okay.
So I really think that we had our burst of success followed by what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Instantly into the Frank Zappa years, transforming ourselves. We had to on the fly.
Right.
And turned ourselves into something else right at that juncture. And then after the Frank years ended abruptly, we had to think on our feet very quickly just to come up with rent, and became Flo and Eddie out of necessity,
right.
And those songs that were on the first Fluorescent Leech and Eddie record were the songs that we had written for the Turtles back in 1970. And never got to record with the Turtles because the other idiots in that screwball band had decided that they wanted to take the band into a more country direction, be a little bit more like the
Flying Burrito Brothers. Or something
yes,
like
exactly right. And we knew all those guys, and look what the Byrds had done when Graham came in, and how everything in L.A. was Jackson oriented now.
And you and Mark weren't feeling that.
No, we were feeling a different kind of singer-songwriter thing. We were more into the Joni and Jackson and Steven and Carly kind of Canyon thing.
Okay, because that's where you guys were.
Geographically, that's where we were, and mentally, that's where we were, and those were the people that really we were hanging with and that we knew. Mm-hmm. So it was only natural for us to have acoustic guitars and want to take the band, if there was one, into that.
Sure.
And that's what that first Flo and Eddie record was. The first Reprise record was acoustic stuff, and then the second one. We had played the first album for Bob Ezrin, and we knew that Alice Cooper was going on the road, and there was a rumor that because we had done so well on the road with Alice, we were going to do the entire year here in the States and in Europe with Alice, and it was going to be great because Reprise had both acts, Warner's had both acts.
Sure.
It was easy for everybody, the same PR people, the same everything. It was going to be a breeze. Ezrin listened to the first Fluorescent Leech and Eddie album and said, "You know what's wrong with this record?" We said, "What, Bob? What? Tell us." And he said, "Well, there aren't any really hooks." Well, what do you mean hooks? Well, you hear that thing that you started there? Yeah. Where does it go? Why did it end? Well, the song comes in. That's not good enough. What do you mean that's not good enough? And Ezrin's theory was that every hit record he had ever had a running lick that went all the way through the record. Somebody was playing a lead line under every portion of that record that went by. There was no such thing as vamping acoustically until the song, the singer came in with his poetry lyric.
Okay.
That was bullshit.
Okay.
What you did was, an Alice Cooper came up with a lick like I'm 18 and mutated it throughout the song and had the guitars play it and had the strings pick it up. And so there was always an undercurrent in every song, giving you at least two melodies to listen to, even if it was just the bass line that was going off and doing that thing under the vocal. Well, it was an eye-opener, but he was also kind of full of crap. It depends on what school of thought you're part of.
Why? Now, let me ask you this.
Guthrie never wrote a song thinking that.
Well, why did you bring it to Bob Ezrin to begin with?
Because it was Warner's suggestion.
Okay.
And he had a lot of success and a lot of it with Alice, and he liked us as people. He had seen us on the road, and they said, "Do you think you could produce these guys?" Because we had produced our first record ourselves.
I see.
And so he took on the challenge. I think he did really well. I think he did a really good record. The fact that they couldn't sell it as a company has nothing to do with him and very little to do with us, because we were out on the road constantly pounding that thing with the Doors, who were then 3 people, not 4. You try to do a headline tour without Jim Morrison.
The Doors kept
They put out an album, John, called Other Voices, and we
What?
Yes, and we did
I'm
the
hearing
Other
about
Voices
this for the first
tour.
time. I never knew about this.
You got to go on iTunes and find it, because you're going to go, whoa. What were they thinking?
Ooh.
because a lot of it, they were trying to do what Jim would have done. Only Ray was doing those vocals and trying to be dark and mysterious about it. And Ray was mysterious in his own way.
I'm not even a Doors. I shouldn't say that I'm not a Doors fan. I just.
It doesn't matter. The Doors were Jim.
Right.
I mean, that's the perception. Everybody, oh, no, the Doors were everybody. Okay, you're right. It was a democracy. They all wrote the songs that Robbie wrote and never really got paid for. We all know the story, you know.
Yeah.
But
I just never bought, being the age that I am, I only got the Doors like in the 80s through the eyes of Rolling Stone magazine. And the whole break on through to the other side, and the mystery of I just never bought it.
You had to sort of see him. I mean,
I get that now in retrospect.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Love Her Madly,
which is the least mysterious and most pop commercial of their songs.
I dig that song, but otherwise, I just the whole the killer awoke before and all that. I just. Nah.
Well, it was a more dramatic time, man. You remember The Crazy World of Arthur Brown?
No, I don't. Howard, I was born in 1972. I don't remember any of that shit.
Well, you should look that clown up, too, because he lit his head on fire.
Did he have like a flaming helmet or something, right? Okay.
And he was the god of hellfire, and that was his entire show.
Okay.
What? You're going to base your entire act on being the god of hellfire? Well, that's not too pompous. But it worked.
No, it was
it worked. He was kind of metal.
Wasn't my taste. I was Paul McCartney and Wings. That's
that's very poppy taste,
poppy.
And I'm about 75% there with Sir Paul.
Yeah.
The other 25, Mary Had a Little Lamb. I'll take a pass.
Yeah. I mean, I forgive him pretty much everything. But
why would you do that?
But
he's not your husband. Why would you do that? I don't forgive him anything. I don't forgive Dylan anything.
Well, let me rephrase that. I don't take it personally. I don't get like angry at it.
That
you know what I mean?
Wasting his talent and your time.
I have a conspiracy theory about that.
Really?
Actually,
I'd love to hear it. And
I have nothing to back it up, but it occurred to me, and I thought, what if Apple was not dissolved until 1975, and up until that point everyone shared in everyone else's profits as solo artists. It didn't matter who. All of Ringo's money that he made as a solo act went into Apple, and John, Paul, and George shared. And I think Alan Klein wanted Paul to stay in Apple because they knew he's the guy that writes Hey Jude and Long and Winding Road and the hits. And I have a conspiracy theory that Paul intentionally said, I'm going to make the shittiest sounding record you've ever heard in your life. You want to profit share in my shit? I'm going to put out crap and see what happens.
Well, he sure did.
I can think of no other explanation for the Wildlife album.
What's rough, man? That's a tough one. There's 4 songs on that are great. There's Some People Never Know is one of them. There's like 2 or 3 songs that are up to McCartney's. The rest of it is like even I'm like, what the hell was he thinking? Now I have a pleasant memory of listening to that record, but not evaluating it. You know what I mean? I think you're giving the boy a little too much credit.
I give him a pass because he's my man. When I was a kid, when you're talking about Soupy Sales, for me, I would look at Paul McCartney playing the bass and be like, that is what I want to fucking do.
Soupy couldn't play the bass. But no, I see what you're saying.
But you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Give my regards
I'm not sure that's I wanted to do what Soupy Sales was doing. I'm just saying that my look at show business was broader than just pop music.
Just pop, being a rock and roller.
Pop music was a smaller part of what I thought I would do. I thought I would do television.
Really?
I really liked it. I still enjoy it.
Sure. And you guys did do a bit of television, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
I mean,
we got to be staff writers and head writers and do a lot of comedy stuff and behind the scenes music as well and Yeah, it wasn't the same as, you know, carving out a life as Mel Brooks
Right.
or doing that sort of
But
thing.
at the same time, you're not carving out a life as like rock stars either. You see, it seems like you sort of exist in all those different worlds.
Never wanted to be a rock star. I never really wanted to be Mel Brooks, you know.
Right.
I don't know about Mark, but I always just wanted to be somewhere in it. And
Okay.
I didn't really know what that meant, but certainly rock and roll or pop music, whatever this is that I do, was my entree into
Okay.
it, and I had no idea that it would last this long. No idea. In fact, in my child mind, I would never see past the age of 28. I remember having at a very young age, 9 or 10, hearing somebody say that Dick Clark was 28 years old, and I almost dropped my Nesquik, you know, thinking to myself, 28, I'll never live to see 28.
Right.
And I was superstitious enough at the age of 28 to think that maybe I wouldn't,
Wow.
you know, and of course, not knowing at the time that 27 is the rock age. If you're going to die, you're going to die at 27. I had no idea that that was even a thing. I just always knew that 28 years. Here's something spooky.
Yeah.
The last thing my father ever said to me,
Yeah.
out of the blue, was 28 years. And my brother, who was standing next to me, said, "What? What does that mean?"
Yeah.
And my father said, "Ask him," meaning me, "he'll know." And I don't. I still don't. I have no idea what he meant.
When was that?
He was in a hospice.
Okay.
He was in, actually, it was a very intense nursing home situation. He could not be kept at home.
And how old were you at this point? You were obviously older than 28.
I was in my 30s, late 30s or
okay.
40s or something, early
Okay.
40s.
All right.
But nonetheless, you hear something like that, and I'm still haunted by it because I have no fucking idea what it means.
Wow.
That was always my cutoff age, but I never told
Never
that
told
to
him that.
anybody. No. And and now 27's the death. I don't know. I don't know what it means. It's just one of those spooky things.
27 or 28, from what I understand, if you're into astrology at all, Saturn apparently revolves around the Earth on a 27 or 28 year cycle, and so at that age is what they call your Saturn return. Saturn is the planet of boundaries and limitations.
Whoa.
And reality, and it's sort of like, Jupiter is the planet of big dreams and I'm going to do this and I'm going to achieve this, and Saturn is the planet that goes, yeah, how's that going to happen? How are you going to make that happen?
Well, I'm that guy.
You have a plan?
I
Okay.
am the voice of cynicism.
Okay.
When it comes to all things Pollyannic.
But not in a bad way, though. Saturn,
I don't mean to knock down the people that I'm
you want to see results.
talking to, but
Yeah.
I will mention something every time I see something that I feel is wrong. There is nothing in my self-editor that stops me from saying, "You're stupid. That's not going to work. That's a big mistake. Here's
Wow.
what you should be doing."
Okay.
And 8 times out of 10, I'm right.
Uh-huh.
I won't say 9, but 8 times out of 10, people will come back and go, "I should have listened to you. I don't know what I was thinking."
Wow.
And I'm on the outside, so I have nothing to do with your life, Mr. X or Miss Y. I'm just saying, you wanted an opinion. I gave you an opinion. You didn't take my advice. You went
Wow.
and did your own thing. And now what? Now that school didn't work out for you and you're headed back east, or this career didn't pan out for you and you're going back into IT
Or whatever,
or
right.
retail, or, I told you, that was... I don't know. Yes, the voice of cynicism. I've always been that guy,
Right.
and I'm proud to be that guy because I'll take great pains to analyze the situation in here before I will make even a snap judgment. There are so many things going on. I'm trying to project 5-6 steps down the line to see, what that kind of thinking will get you.
Where do you think that comes from? Have you? Were you like that when you were 5? I mean,
I was analytical.
Okay.
I knew that I loved reading like Perry Mason. I loved that sort of thing because I would try to figure out the criminals right along with Earl Stanley Gardner, and I wouldn't often come to the conclusions he did because he made up things spur of the moment and introduced the Gardner who did it.
Yeah.
What? But I would really try to, and Alfred Hitchcock and all those shows and stuff. I was into that. I was very into to trying to think ahead a little bit, trying to plan my next move like a chess game.
All right.
If it's going someplace, if life has a direction, or if nature is swinging me this way, then I'm going to take advantage of it and go with it. I've never been one to fight it unless I thought that there were inequities going on or that it was a really bad judgment call.
Right.
Radio 418.
You got a thing about you. I just can't live without you. I really want you, Eleanor, near me. Your looks intoxicate me. Even though your folks hate me, there's no one like you, Eleanor, really. Eleanor, gee, I think you're swell, and you really do me well. You're my pride and joy, etc. Eleanor, can I take the time to ask you to speak your mind? Tell me that you love me better.
Because reading the book, I was surprised at all the twists and turns that you guys took together career-wise.
We took huge chances, but we had nothing to lose. Because as I said, once the pop career ended, we really didn't know what we were going to do. So if somebody came along and said, hey, you guys would probably be good writing TV scripts, sure we would. Give us an office. That's all we ever wanted. Once we figured out that rock and roll guys never got an office,
Right.
we wanted an office.
Interesting.
And we always had one. We always had one. Herb Cohen, bless his soul, always provided us an office. And when he didn't, we found one at our graphics company, or we find one at Miss Universe when we worked at Fiorentino Productions, which was later Procter & Gamble. I mean, I can't believe we were getting a check from Procter & Gamble.
Wow.
But that was our source of income for a while. We did a lot of corporate stuff and wound up in a lot of what-if scenarios. So, writing for comedy and doing TV and writing movie soundtracks and doing that kind of stuff and syncing it up and bringing in the voice talent to do the overdub, the ADR work and the Foley stuff. And all.
How did you learn about all that stuff?
By doing it.
Just getting in there and getting the gig?
By saying, yes, they ask us, can we do it? We say yes and worry about how later.
And if you don't know how, you find people that know how.
We'll learn how.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll surround ourselves with the best people in the world. We will learn from them, and we will come in there and deliver a product, no matter what it is, whether it's a TV show or a movie or a record or whatever, that will knock their socks off, because that's what we do, and people are surprised at every turn. Wow, we didn't know you had it in you. You never asked.
Right.
But that's why we always, or at least during the 70s and 80s, called ourselves alternative vocations. Because we never really thought about ourselves as a rock act. We thought of ourselves as, we weren't actors who were hired to play singers a la the Monkees, but we were singers who wanted to do everything else that we possibly could to learn all the facets of show business necessary.
I think that's what sets you guys apart.
We're old school.
It's a very old school approach. Instead of taking you could have spent the 70s and 80s milking the turtles And
I couldn't do it.
But just viewing yourselves as that. I mean, Mark talks about that in our interview. He talked about just any job you can get in show business is a worthwhile endeavor. Instead of thinking of yourself as just, he says he relates it to his students now. It's unlikely that all of you in this room are going to get on The Tonight Show and have a hit record.
People don't understand.
But that's okay.
They don't understand that you can study and you can read and you can go to school and you can read all the books in the world written about publishing and management and agents, and it won't buy you a cup of coffee in the real world. It really won't. You'll have your education. It's a lot better probably than like English lit or African poetry to fall back on. But like I said before in the book, falling back is stupid. Never give yourself that option. Never. So falling back is not part of the education. I just believe that as much as the books help, college is a settling down period. It's a time to evaluate what you've done up until then and to focus your life on what you want to do in the future. Coincidentally, it's the time when your mind is still malleable and people are trying to get you to at least accept new ideas, new directions, open yourself up to what you want to do for the rest of your life. That part's great. What is not necessarily great is what they are teaching you. All the book learning in the world isn't going to do as much as getting on a tour bus and like we doing with those Belmont kids and showing them the realities of the road to the point where a week and a half in, half of them are ready to go home and they've had it. And they couldn't do this if their life depended on it, and they don't understand us at all.
Or they love it and want to stay here forever.
Or it's in their blood and you can see it in their eyes and they're going to make it.
That's the majority of those kids were like bumming out that they were going home.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. It's not a summer camp thing. It's more than that. It's you can see it in the ones that are life committed. That spark in their eyes. When the curtain goes up, just like it does for us.
Sure.
Because I can be dragging ass for 23 and a half hours. But when Shadow Stevens' voice comes on, and like the 60s themselves, and all of a sudden my ass puckers up and I'm ready to dance. And even at its worst, if I've got a cold or if I'm going through, a back spasm or something bizarre has happened in my personal life or whatever, that tape comes on and it's gone. There's no pain, there's no grief, there's no shit, there's just the show.
Nice.
And the show is the thing, and you can't learn it. You can't read it. There's no way in hell you'll be able to get that from anybody else's experience but your own. So as much as I suggest reading everything you can about how to further your life, you're going to learn more playing in a bar than you are reading any of those books as a musician, as far as I'm concerned. You're going to learn the realities of an audience at its most base. You're going to learn how to deal with stupid, slimy promoters who will nickel and dime you at that level and at the top of the ladder too. I mean, Mariah Carey was ripped off just like we were. And when you read the Beatles' original contract, you want to cry.
Oh, yeah.
Our deal was better than the Beatles' deal, and we had to sue to get out of it. So,
well, that brings up, and it's something that I was thinking about, is that, like, I was thinking about the two guys from Badfinger that killed themselves. Pete Ham, Tom Evans. Over what? Business deals gone wrong. Right? And I for whatever reason, I was thinking to myself, man, fucking Flo and Eddie, those guys got just about as screwed as anybody. And they just kept going. And I thought, it would never occur to Howard to go hang himself in his garage. It just proves like there's a temperament and a personality. Like this business is not for everyone.
No, man.
Would you agree with that? This is
not. What they did is confuse life with show business.
Okay.
one has nothing to do with the other at all. You live your life. Show business is just something that you do. It's either accepted or not accepted. You either have fun doing it or you can treat it as a chore. But to take it seriously, that seriously, to blow your or hang yourself, let's say, over a deal gone wrong, or 10 years to the day after your career ended because that guy offed himself.
Right.
You know, that's a band that has been plagued with the worst luck.
Not to disparage them or disrespect them or any way, but, you know, it just occurred to me, like, wow, like, it doesn't, you know, why does one person kill himself and someone else they just keep going? All right,
in the case of Badfinger, it was drugs and too much too fast and the responsibility of being the baby Beatles.
Right.
And that killed them. They could not live up to it. You know, even with Mal Evans at the helm, he couldn't live up to
Another
it.
one who couldn't, yeah.
That was the saddest of them all.
That's, yeah.
You know, that was suicide by cop. That's a low way to go. But he knew he was going. He knew he wanted to go. That's just ridiculous. Look, it's only rock and roll.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, it's only show business. It's not even rock and roll. Rock and roll is something internal for me that you feel. It's visceral. You feel it at a Springsteen concert. You feel it when you hear a Donna Summer record turned up. Whatever that is,
right.
It's rock and roll, and it's the thump of the human heart, you know, and that's what keeps us alive and functioning. But come on, man. It's not reality. It's not the great books. It's not fine drama. It's not knowing how to make a beautifully crafted piece of wood. I mean, it's not knowing how to do anything that is ever going to last. It's ethereal. Music at its best is floating through the air. The fact that you can capture it or parts of it and record it for posterity is wonderful.
Right.
Is wonderful, because otherwise it would only exist as a live medium as it did in the past.
Right.
And people would talk about it and go see it, and the buzz would still be in the air, but it wouldn't be preserved. You know, now that there is a business in the last 200 years of recording the stuff and making it accessible to future generations, I suppose the role of a musician has changed a bit.
Sure.
You know, now it's a little more grabby than it used to be, and everybody wants their piece. It's not really about making the music; it's about making the money.
It's true about any new thing that comes along. That like, well, there's a lot of money in that. Let's go do it.
Yeah, but if you're Pete Ham, and you did do it, and you made the great music, and you made the history,
right,
and you got a bad deal, okay, life kicked you in the throat for a minute.
Okay.
But what?
But there's more to life than that. You're still a person.
You're a mind. You're a body. You're a family guy. You've had children.
He didn't. He was his wife. His wife was pregnant at the time.
How can you do that?
He's got a baby on the way.
How can you take that away? How can you take fatherhood away from that child? How can you take a family away?
Over a shitty businessman.
That was just horribly rude and incredibly selfish. And nothing business-wise justifies that kind of move.
Right.
Nothing.
No matter how badly
screwed
you get.
Stupid. And the business of rock and roll, if that's what it does for you, I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. My worst enemy shouldn't have to deal with that kind of angst. That's just fucking stupid.
You showed me how to do exactly what you do. How I fell in love with you. Oh, it's true. Oh, you showed me how to say exactly what you say in that very special way.
Can I ask you a Harry Nilsson question?
Yeah.
It's a you question, but it starts with Harry, and this jumped out of the book at me. You said when Harry ended that's the day the music kind of died for me. I started looking at concerts differently. I stopped caring so much about the little things. I began to trust myself more to the flow of the universe. I stopped obsessing and spending sleepless nights on unsolvable problems. I stopped thinking consciously about 38% of the time. I lost weight and stopped eating any food that was white. So
Yeah.
what I want to know is, because that jumped off the page for me, because I had just lost a friend to breast cancer. And at that moment when I got the news, that's how I felt. I was like, well, then fuck everything, to a certain extent. Like most of the, I just started letting a lot of things go. But what I want to know is, what was it about Harry specifically, of all the people that of all the colleagues and people that you've had, that you've lost in your life, what was it about Harry or your relationship with him that caused you to have such a profound transition in your consciousness?
It was just so incredibly sad.
Yeah.
I think in the case, in Mark Bolan's case, for instance, when it had been a sudden and horrific death, yeah, I agonized about it, but shit happens.
Right.
In Harry's case, shit continued to happen.
I see.
It wasn't quick. It was agonizingly slow, and this man went from the most confident, most brilliant singer-songwriter I've ever known, and changed and mutated into this obese, non-caring. He threw it away. I know he was very, very sick, and I know his systems were all shutting down one at a time.
It's too much partying.
Well, if you want to call it that, I don't think Harry got any enjoyment out of that partying. I think that Lennon kept him around sort of as a jester during his lost weekend period. And I think Harry felt used and abused by somebody that he really expected to spend the rest of his life being very close to, a guy he really loved. And he was heartbroken. It wasn't just his life that made him sad, it was just life that made him sad.
Wow.
Not just his demise, it was just sort of the people that he had put his trust in.
Because in the documentary, they talk about how after Lennon was killed, Harry became this like full-time anti-gun warrior, and the vibe was like, yeah, that's great, Harry, but you should be writing songs and making music. Why are you going to...
He couldn't do it anymore.
Really?
He couldn't do it anymore. He lost his confidence. He lost everything. He was like, the littlest Wallenda. He was up there. Only Dad was saying, "You're gonna fall.
Right.
You're gonna fall."
Right.
So he got so nervous that he stopped. He stopped caring. He stopped being good. When I say that I stopped caring, what I mean to say is I stopped worrying about the little parts of my life that had always troubled me before. I would always agonize before a show, a concert. The night before I had to leave for a show, if it was a big show or a Hollywood Bowl or a Carnegie, one of those shows.
An important show.
Yeah, an important showbiz thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would stay up. I would agonize about it. I would psych myself into a place where I would actually get hoarse, and I'm not sure if I was losing my voice and that triggered it, or if mentally I could make myself hoarse by not having the confidence.
Yeah.
By not knowing that I was, of course, good enough to do it. I've been doing it for 50 years. I don't need to warm up. I don't need to, and I don't. I don't need any of that stuff. But for years and years, it really troubled me. And the road was no fun. Really no fun at all. I got no enjoyment out of it. And it stopped being what it used to be. It wasn't just Harry's death, to be blatantly honest. It was Phil Reed's death, the lead guitar player who was murdered. That guy.
From Flo and Eddie, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was an attitude about the business that had changed. And had turned into sort of the record business became a side trip to the drug world instead of the other way around.
Right.
For a whole bunch of years. And it was a very unpleasant place to be because you would see these big executives make these stupid, wrong decisions with their buddies just based on a rolled up $100 bill and what was on the table in front of them. Yeah. And you would know, this is not going to work. This is a huge mistake. What are you guys thinking? The drugs are talking, you know, and they were. And so we watched a lot of our contemporaries get caught up in it and go down. Yeah. Just go down. Not necessarily in their lives, but sometimes just in their careers or in their minds or I can't do this anymore. And, you know, in a Lee Michaels kind of way, just sort of withdraw and not be viable anymore, not be show business anymore.
Right. Viable.
Well,
I mean, that's
viable to the public and confident enough to do it in their minds.
That combination of
you've got to have both.
Asset.
You can't sell what you don't believe in. Or if you try, you're going to be busted right off the bat.
Sure.
Because then you're the Eagles. You can get away with it once. They'll never, hell freezes over. I don't think that'll ever happen again because people saw what happened when it did freeze over and nobody cared.
They're still out there though. They're still on tour. But I see what you mean.
Sucks. And the music sucks and they still don't talk to each other and it's not a band. And if you're paying $350 to watch a bunch of red flannel move on stage, you're an asshole. And that's not.
I don't disagree with that. I felt that way. When I heard the Police were reuniting, I thought, "Fuck yeah!" And then I saw them open the Grammys that year, and I was like, "They are so phoning it in." I'm just by looking at them, I can tell that they're phoning. I'm not spending the cost of a really good mic.
No, but
on that ticket.
The weirdest part of that particular thing, it wasn't even Sting. It was Copeland. It was the people who should have cared, the two guys who should have cared.
Right.
Andy and Stewart shouldn't have been phoning it in, but they were the guys who were phoning it in.
It was
Sting's
idea, apparently.
To give them
I thought it would be great to see what we sound like today, and they're not even looking at each other.
Timberlake did it 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Bringing the idiot guys from NSYNC up on stage with him.
Right.
It's a good thing. It's a positive career move, and it's kind of a good faith thing to do with guys that you were partners with for so long. It's Dean meets Jerry. It's okay.
Ringo said that in the George Martin documentary. They show them listening to Abbey Road together. And can you believe what we did in 8 years? And Ringo says, yeah, 8 years, that's it for any band.
Yeah.
So then, how do you account for you and Volman?
Well, we're not a band, for one thing.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, you've got to be musicians to be a band.
Okay.
But
even as a partnership, I mean, Dean and Jerry lasted, 10 years to the day?
To the day, yeah. As a partnership, I think the smartest thing we ever did was to separate ourselves geographically.
Okay.
At the exact time when we did.
Which was when?
Which was about 20 years ago.
Okay.
Career-wise, the Happy Together tours were going then. So we had money.
You doing radio? You doing K-Rock, I think,
We
right?
may have been still doing radio at
Okay.
that time. That
right.
may have been the last of the shows that we were taping in Los Angeles and sending to WLIR
Okay,
on Long Island,
right.
because we did that for a couple of years as well. I think that's what we were doing.
Okay.
But we just knew. I mean, it was instinctive. For me, it was instinctive. And and as I said in the book, it had a lot to do with the Rodney King thing, and I had to get out of L.A. But it was more than that. It was way more than that. There was a sea change. When we got back from New York, things were totally different. When we got back from doing those 2 years on K-Rock,
Yeah. The West Coast, you mean? It was different.
when we returned to California from New York, yeah, we came back to a different world.
What was different about it?
Well, in my case, not all that much. I came back to the house that I had rented out to Chris Elliott for 2 years,
Okay.
and it was in pretty good shape, and we just moved right back in. I know that I had to get out of L.A. because L.A. was changing, and it coincided with Mark's move out of his house and away from his family, so it just seemed like both things were going on at the same time. You know, in my case, I decided to get out of LA and just go north. I loved the Pacific Coast. I wanted to live on it, and I found a great little place to be and went there.
That's where you are now?
No,
Oh,
no, that's I went to Brookings, Oregon.
okay.
This really tiny, beautiful little coastal village, fishing village, timber and fishing, and 6,000 people, and just beautiful,
Nice.
just beautiful. But Mayberry, nonetheless. I mean, make no mistake, man. Small town consciousness.
Okay.
And I realized it really quickly, and I had to go and join the Elks Club because otherwise nobody in town would talk to me.
Wow.
Yeah, even though when I first came to town, there was a picture of my wife, my daughter, and myself on the cover of the Curry Coastal Pilot. It's Curry County, Oregon. And the headline was "Turtle Chooses Brookings." And then it was about how I had gone up and down the coast looking for places, and
Right.
big deal, you know, I had
Right.
found a place. When in essence, what it should have said was, now let's see if he can clear escrow, because we're going to make this fucker go through shit. Because we don't want him here for reals.
That's what happened?
That's, yeah, they
Oh,
put me through
shit.
6 months of, they went through everything I had ever earned. They called everybody I'd ever worked
Oh, my
for. They went
God.
through all of my paperwork. It was worse than any divorce I have ever had.
Oh, my
It
God.
was unbelievable to qualify for this house, which was an incredible place. And when we moved there, and then it wasn't so incredible when I left there.
Oh, okay. How long were you there for?
Just a couple of years, in fact, and that's what was so strange. In the 2.5 years I think I was there, they put up houses all around me, and all of a sudden I wasn't the only house on the cliff anymore, and there were
Okay.
subdivisions and school buses and what?
It wasn't you were going up there to sort of get away, and now it was developing a little bit more.
A little bit. What was developing even more was my wife's alcoholism, however.
Oh, I see.
And that was the big reason that
Okay.
I had to get away.
So then where did you go after that?
Well, I went to St. Louis, of all places, because I had had a phone relationship, a platonic phone relationship with my now wife,
Okay.
who was on the radio at that time in St. Louis. I had met her in Denver when she was on the radio there, on a cool FM, rock and roll, classic, whatever the hell.
Okay.
And she had introduced us at this huge concert, 100,000 people, at 80,000 people at Mile High Stadium. 80,000 people. And it was great because they gave the tickets away. It was cool, 103, so like $1.03 bought you a concert ticket, right?
Okay.
Station promotion. So she was the one who got to introduce us, and she interviewed me and stuff. And the day of the concert, I remember she came out and she was wearing this 2-piece pink leather suit.
Nice.
And I went, yeah, that's it. That's what I want.
There you
know, but I was married and I had already been through a whole lot of shit, and I had a young child, and I wasn't about to jeopardize that.
Yeah.
And in fact, I didn't, not through anything that we ever did. We just talked. But talking was necessary. I needed somebody to talk to.
Sure.
And when my my alcoholic wife said, "Oh, listen, buddy, get out of town because I don't want to have to bump into you at the market. And it's a small place, and beat it."
Okay.
I made tracks, and I literally asked Michelle if I could move in with her. Because I didn't know what else to do.
Sure.
I didn't want to go back to New York. I didn't want to go back to L.A. And I just felt that, you know, somewhere neutral. How about the middle of the country where I'd never even stayed?
Wow.
So we gave it a shot. We were there for 6.5 years. I bought a beautiful house. Beautiful house there. But then Michelle's radio career abruptly ended as CBS bought the radio chain that she worked for and promptly fired everybody who was making more than $100,000 a year and replaced them with $20,000 a year interns who would laugh at the guys' jokes, and it would be hilarious morning zoo, and they didn't really want anybody who was witty, and they didn't want a news person, and they scaled down. And we were sitting there. We were just sitting there. And
you're doing like Happy Together tours, the Turtles?
Not doing Happy Together tours.
So what were you doing?
Barely existing during this time. We would do maybe 2-3 shows a month.
Okay.
They'd be nice shows.
Fly in, do a Turtles show.
But not enough.
Okay.
Because when Michelle and I had gotten together for this rather expensive home, she was bringing in half the bacon.
I see.
And it was a very nice situation. All of a sudden, that half was gone, and my half now had to cover everything, and we were in huge trouble. All of a sudden, we found ourselves in huge financial trouble because the Turtles weren't working that much. So literally, it came down to, what the hell are we going to do? Because in a minute, we're going to run out of money. And I suggested, okay, look, if we're going to run out of money, let's run out of money someplace really cool. This is my way of I would still approach it the same way.
Well, by all appearances, it seems to have worked out. It seems to have been...
Worked great. You know, I just said, let's go to Seattle.
Okay.
I had a daughter who lived there. My eldest daughter lived in Seattle with her mom in Bellevue, my very area. And my youngest daughter had lived just down the coast in famous Brookings, Oregon.
Okay.
So I was close to my kids. And it seemed like the thing to do. And it has worked out great. And I've lived in Seattle now 11 years, and I love it to death.
Great.
Love it. Great place. Great place.
So what is life like for you when you're not doing this?
When I'm not doing this, I really enjoy not doing this. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to really have a life and to
just
have
normal
friends and to spend time, you want to come over and listen to records and stuff. Listen to records.
Nice.
Yeah, I haven't done that in 20 years. I mean, really, I don't have that many so-called out-of-business friends. And being in Seattle forces you to have people that are your friends who are not directly connected to Hollywood or the New York music scene.
Right.
And that's the part that I enjoy most. Because they're real people. They're doctors and they're lawyers and they're guys who work for Budweiser and they're guys who, work at the pizza place or whatever. And it's, I think, the first time I've really interacted with people and felt like I was part of it and not like I was faking my way into the community by joining the Elks Club or something.
But you also, you're not walking around going, "Hi, I'm in the Turtles."
They don't care.
You don't. Okay,
they don't
that's
care.
the thing.
The great part about that city is nobody gives a flying fuck.
Right.
And show business people are treated with respect, but you're not given anything.
But not more so than anyone else.
No, you wait in line like everybody else. you know, and that's wonderful. I'm not Bon Jovi, as you said, anyway, so I'm not really plagued with that sort of problem. It
Right.
doesn't really follow me around wherever I go.
Right.
I can be really anonymous. Nobody really knows. And it's pretty fantastic.
That's cool.
I
But at the
enjoy
same
it.
time, I don't get the sense that you're disavowing of what you've done. Don't talk to me about the Turtles. That's behind me.
Love it.
Like, you love it.
Love it
And
to
I mean,
death.
I watch you on Facebook and on Twitter interacting with the fans. You seem to be proud of what you've achieved.
Yeah, I'm not just selling it.
Right.
I mean, like I said earlier, you can't sell it if you don't believe in it.
Right.
You know, I believe in my past, but I believe more in the future that I haven't made yet.
Right.
You know, I didn't know if writing a book would work. I didn't know if anybody would care or if it would even get published.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I'd be able to tour with it or if people would want it signed or if it would just be a vanity project and I would have 8 boxes of books in my house forever.
People seem to really dig it.
It kind of worked.
Yeah.
You know, that little movie of a few years ago,
Yeah.
that kind of worked.
Yeah.
It won a bunch of awards and stuff.
Right.
It didn't make anybody but me any money, but I was smart enough to anticipate the famous no back end rule, and you know, at least got paid for the writing of the screenplay and stuff that you figure. Come on, you're an idiot if you don't get paid for writing the screenplay. You're hunched over a typewriter for 6-7 months and you're going to cross your fingers because it's a little indie. There is no money unless you're Napoleon Dynamite. You're not going to get it.
Right.
So everything I have done has not at all been for money. Every solo project has just been so I could get it off my fucking chest because I needed to make a record. I needed to write a book. And I feel now that I need to get into exploring more of my writing capabilities. I think I'm a pretty good writer.
You
and
are.
I'd like to get into writing more fiction. And
How did that start? The science fiction writing.
I just love it.
Okay.
I love the genre. I've always loved it. In 1980 or so, along with the drummer from the band, Joe Stefko, I went to my first World Fantasy Convention in Providence, Rhode Island, and got to mingle at that time with Stephen King and Peter Straub and Dean Koontz and I think even Harlan was there at that particular convention. Harlan Ellison, who's a friend who I dearly love, and Ray Bradbury and Kurt Vonnegut, and all of these incredible people that, to me, as an avid reader of every science fiction book I could find since Robert Heinlein in the 5th grade. These were stars to me. Beatlemania, all of those conventions, I could give a flying rat's ass. They're not stars, you know.
Right.
I think that's kind of silly. But writers, I mean, the people that are really the intelligentsia, those kind of people I don't mind hanging around with a lot and talking to and picking their brains and getting to know. And I still know and correspond with a lot of those people that I met back then. Joe Stefko went on to publish a lot of their books, and still does, and that's great. He's kind of, on the periphery of that. But
so when did you first try your hand at, like?
I think I was writing horror stories in high school.
Oh, okay.
Mostly.
Oh, so this has been going on for you for a while.
Forever.
Okay.
Forever.
All right.
Early love for the Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock, and like I say, all of the kind of twisty, turny, you think you know what's happening and then you don't kind of stories.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed them all my life, and I enjoy writing them. And I'll get into more fiction. I don't know what kind. I thought I would do it this summer, but I need a motivation, like I did with the book or the movie or anything else. And no one's been kicking my ass to do anything this year, so I've just kind of been riding very low and treating this tour very low profile. I haven't really been.
Well, there's been a lot of friggin' shows on this one.
Yeah, but outside of the shows, I haven't been really doing anything.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that there's no time. I thought for sure I was going to come out here and write a ton of songs and get a ton of work done.
Yeah.
And there's just been no time.
Well, last year I wrote the book.
Right.
The entire book on the tour. So this year I was thinking, you know, I enjoyed that process so much, I would do it again.
Yeah.
But the missing piece of that puzzle was I had a co-writer at the time who daily would admonish me if I didn't
give me
come
some
up
stuff.
with 20 pages.
Right.
You know, so I was forced to keep a deadline, a daily deadline.
Now you don't have someone else, a collaborator.
I need it. Not so much a collaborator as an editor or somebody to just kick my butt and say, listen, buddy, this isn't going to do itself. You're going to have to write it yourself.
So you have to be that. You have to be that person for yourself if you want it badly enough.
And
right?
I've never been able to do it. I'm always the guy who writes the term paper the day before it's due.
Right.
I'll get an A,
Right.
but I'll stay up all night to do it.
Yeah.
And sadly, life doesn't give you A's. That's why you can't study for SATs. You really can't. You either know it or you don't know it.
Right.
You either feel the music or you don't feel the music. You either
Right.
commit to this show business or you don't.
So you still committed to the show business?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Totally.
Because you end the book saying, I don't know how much longer I can do this entertainment shit.
Well, this entertainment shit, meaning the stuff I'm doing now with you here on the road.
Okay.
Not this podcast.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
entertainment as I know it, 3 months a year.
Okay.
That's the stuff that'll kill you. The rest of it, the periphery of it, the writing, the production, the getting involved with other people and collaborating.
Artistic endeavors, creative
I'm still
endeavors.
talking to, I still talk to Chris Beard, a writer friend of mine, lives in Las Vegas, did Laugh In for all those years ago,
Sure.
and a No Comic Show and all that stuff. He still wants to do a show, and he's trying to get me to go to LA and sit down and, what am I going to do, man? Am I going to move to LA? Am I going to do that? Are we going to write it over the internet? Is he going to send me? That's not how to do it.
Right.
To really commit to that sort of thing, that's a TV thing. You've got to really want it. You've got to go down there, and I say down there meaning LA,
Right.
to do it and rent a place and get into it.
Get in and do it
be
right.
there for the taping. Otherwise,
Sure.
it's going to go wrong. And it's not going to be your vision, and I've seen it happen, and it's horrible. And I'm not sure that I'm ready. I don't think I can do that. I don't want to do that.
Because you like your life in Seattle a lot.
Man, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. If I could find something there that was a money-making thing that wouldn't necessarily be cross your fingers and take a talented young bunch of musos into the studio, I would do it. But that really is what everybody there is waiting for. They want you to go into those famous Seattle rooms and come out with a young new band and be the next Modest Mouse or something.
Whatever, and you're just, that's not your...
As much as I love alt music, that's the music I listen to.
Yeah.
I'm not cruising the clubs, finding bands. I'm not looking for guys to sign.
Good for you.
I think that's a really swarthy thing to do, and I wouldn't trust anybody that did that to me as a performer. So
Right.
I wouldn't want to be that guy to anybody else.
Okay.
Yeah, it
So then
doesn't matter to me.
the question that I ask everybody, what inspires you now? That's pretty much, you've pretty much explained that.
I'm inspired by my home life. I really love it. Well, it doesn't take 3 months to appreciate it for me. And it's not like it was even with the same people in my life in Missouri. When I opened the door of that beautiful house, I was still in fucking Missouri. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's a great place.
Yeah.
Just not for me.
Right.
I open my door now and I suck in the negative ions and I look across the lake at the snow on the mountains in the middle of summer and it's 80 degrees and everybody's riding bikes and their dogs are there and it's just the most beautiful, serene, passive, crystal clear, drug-like experience you can imagine without having drugs involved. Although, may I say that having drugs involved in a state where it is illegal is a fantastic thing.
Right. It doesn't hurt.
Something I never expected to see in my lifetime.
Yeah.
And my lifetime since the age of 17 has been largely not focused around, but enhanced by the presence of weed. And now that it's legal, I don't care that much. It's
Right.
an interesting sort of thing. It's like, you can't eat those cupcakes. You can't eat those cupcakes.
Right.
I want a cupcake, man. Okay, go ahead. No, I don't care anymore.
Right. In fact, I was reading some article today about one of the states where it was decriminalized, and they said that use among teenagers has actually gone down since it's been legal.
Well, the only thing that scares me about that is teenagers are finding something else that's going up.
Yeah.
Because if weed use is going down, and that's the safest thing that there is, then they're finding something more toxic to rot their brains.
That could be.
And that's
I could be
not
getting all
good.
that right. I might be remembering all that wrong. I don't know.
I know that
bus ride's a blur.
That
today.
it did absolutely nothing in Washington State when it was decriminalized. The only thing they had to do is retrain the dogs not to sniff out pot. Otherwise, nothing happened.
Sure.
Absolutely nothing. No more dealers, no more people coming up from California trying to sell their weed because it's, it smells great, but it doesn't really. I don't know. Nothing happened. Nothing.
Right.
Maybe it'll change when it's, in every 7-Eleven. And you don't have to worry about going to a state store or a dispensary or something, and that'll kick in probably the first of the year or so.
And you're healthy? You don't have any respiratory issues with it?
No respiratory issues, and if I did, I would use weed to cure them.
Okay. There you go.
I don't, I know people that have respiratory issues that were not at all caused by weed, and in ingesting it helps them a great deal.
Uh-huh.
So they don't smoke it, of course, but there are all sorts of other ways to deal with it. And I am an advocate, and I will stand up for it and fight and say, hell yeah, I am that guy.
Yeah.
Because I totally believe there's nothing toxic about it. It's not a gateway to anything. I'd certainly rather have a joint than a martini, and I feel a lot safer.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And the world would be a lot better place, But people have been saying that for 50 years, and only now.
Well, now that there's data that shows that there are financial advantages, that's...
Oh, yes, that's true. Now that it's a political thing, now all of a sudden states can make money with it. They can tax it. They can run it through the system. Now all of a sudden, now we buy it. Now it's fine. Now Sanjay Gupta comes out of the closet and goes, yeah, I've always thought it was a great idea. You liar. And next Dr. Phil will be endorsing it. It really doesn't matter. I don't need an endorsement. Like I say, if you can't learn it from a book, you have to experience it. You can't talk about weed and not know what you're talking about. You can't talk about politics or religion and know half of what you're talking about.
Right. That's why I stay out of so many of those conversations.
Man, in this little closed thing that we're in, it's volatile. When you realize that, you're 180 degrees from these people. On one level, you can be friends with them, you can be professional buddies, you can share respect and all that, and it's very important. On the other hand, the minute you cross over into any territory that might be considered personal space, sex or religion or politics, it's bad news. They should be avoided at all costs in a submarine situation like this.
Right.
Where forced to be with each other. All of a sudden you start picking scabs, or you notice cracks in the facade that you hadn't seen before, and it makes things less enjoyable. It's so much better when it's surface, and all of a sudden you realize that if you're a little too familiar, it's dangerous. Then contempt can set in. Then people say things that they shouldn't say, or express opinions that they should keep to themselves. And that's what breaks bands up, that kind of familiarity. That's why Mark and I, although we're not diametrically opposed, we are different thinking in enough ways so that I feel that our geographical separation did us a lot of good at just the right time.
And you're not joined at the hip?
No, not at all. And when Mark discovered religion, it was around 20 years ago. Okay. And that's when I discovered that I didn't want to do that. and that I think it was a good idea to put a little geography between us,
Right.
so that we wouldn't wind up necessarily carpooling to every show.
Always
So that-
doing everything together all the time.
Because
Yeah.
this is a man who was really in need of a life, as was I.
Right.
And I didn't have it, and he didn't have it, and we were both 20 years ago looking for that life that I think we both found.
Yes.
In totally different places, in different arenas, and in different mind places.
Well, that's the life. Those lives are the ones that I'm doing these interviews for.
Yeah,
because I'm
the people
40
that exist now.
Right. Well, I'm 41, and I'm thinking about the next, and I've said this in every friggin' show, the next 20 to 30 years of my life. And I've been watching you guys off stage and admiring the way you guys carry yourselves. And I've wanted to get a sense of like what makes you guys tick, because for a long time, I thought that 40 was it. Like how you thought 28.
Yeah.
For me, as a musician in New York in my 20s, I would hook up with these guys who were like in their late 30s, early 40s, and they were already bitter and jaded, and like I was always very like, hey, really like enthusiastic.
Yeah, but they had already been in
get ready for
100
the
bands that
get
didn't
ready
make
for the
it.
future, kid. Like they'd already been ripped off. There had been a couple of bands got dropped. The new crop of youngsters were coming on the scene, and I knew that there was something wrong about that, but I also, in my mind, felt like, well, once you've hit 40, you've kind of, that's your wall. And seeing you guys now, well into your 60s, still kicking ass, has been very inspiring. So I wanted to kind of...
Yeah, age has nothing to do with it. I really think common sense
Okay.
is what keeps you alive in show business. I really think if you have enough smarts to step back from your situation a little bit and to look at it from the outside, not as a turtle, but as somebody else, and look at the trajectory that band had in the 60s, what we were able to parlay it into, and how the Flo and Eddie half of that name means just as much as the Turtles name does these days, because it identifies us as the original two guys, but more importantly, it shows that we're not necessarily just going to be a band who stands up and delivers the hits. Mm-hmm. That there's more to us than the hits.
Oh, yeah.
Whether there's a sense of humor that comes to mind when you hear Flo and Eddie mentioned, or you remember the strawberry shortcake stuff, or whatever it is, the Mothers, anything that comes up, T-Rex. I saw a bunch of T-Rex guys last night.
Yeah,
Every once in a while, you'll see fans wearing psychedelic fur shirts or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just go, yeah, man, they totally got it.
Yeah.
I was able to hit that guy for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to hit this guy who normally wouldn't have known who the Turtles were nor cared.
Sure.
Certainly not on a Flo and Eddie level would he ever have bought my stuff, and yet he knows enough about me to know that that's what he liked about those T-Rex records. Mark Bolan's not alive anymore. He can't see T-Rex, but he
Right.
can see us. Frank
Right.
Zappa's not alive anymore,
Right.
but you can see us.
Right.
And like we say every night, the Beatles, they're not coming here,
right.
but we're here now.
Right.
You can either dig it, or why are you here?
Right.
And people get it. They get it because they plunk down their money and they realize, oh yeah, that's right. They are up on stage.
Right.
We have been here for the last 2 hours. We have forgotten our bullshit for a minute.
Yeah.
That's all we're here to do.
Sure.
Like I said before, music is ethereal, man. It exists around us and in the atmosphere, and these people come to get a closer look at the source, but they take the music home with them.
Right.
So you can't ever deny them that. You can't shortchange them that. The groups that try to update their shows so that they can make their old hits more contemporary.
They make it about them.
That's a selfish, stupid thing to do.
Right.
And you're letting your audience down. They didn't come to hear that. They didn't come to hear your new songs either. They don't want you to do your new songs.
That's the impression that I got the first couple of times that I played your set in 2010. Having never worked with you guys before, I didn't know what to expect. And there's Mark jumping around with the tambourines and all the clowning and all the shtick. And then it's like, oh, by the way, here's this really killer pop song that we're gonna do, and oh, by the way, yeah, we're doing jokes and we're doing shtick. Oh, and by the way, here's another killer song. Like it's like one excellent, well-crafted song after another. It's not just about the shtick. There's the music is like it's like we just happen to have these incredible songs behind us as well.
Well, I think we
and you can't argue with that.
I think we'd still be a good act even if we didn't have had hit records in the past.
Okay.
If we'd had one hit record and the rest of the show was filler, it would still be a great show because that's who we are. Our show business sense is such that we don't want to disappoint an audience for any reason whatsoever. The fact that we can fall back on hits is great. But if we didn't, I think we could fall back on Kinks songs and still have a really good set.
Well, I said to Mark, I said, when are you going to start doing stuff off of Turtle Soup? Like, when are you going to do House on the Hill? And he was like, oh, come on.
Well, that's a deep cut.
Right.
That's a pretty deep cut.
But that was the thing. I started getting into the albums, and I was like, this is killer shit. This is as good as any of the, as a 60s music geek, it was like Turtle Soup or the Happy Together album, Think I'll Run Away, Lady O, like all these deep cuts are fucking killer.
It was a good band. It was always a good band. We never used outside musicians. We only had ourselves.
Right.
But we were a good band. I think if you start out as a good band, your heart, you've got the core of what will always exist as a good band.
Yeah.
You're not going to know less than you know right now. You're only going to learn from your experience and your mistakes and your book learning, or whatever. And it only gets better. It does only get better. The change I went through with Harry when Harry died freed me up in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Whereas I would, like I say, agonize about these shows in advance, I don't anymore. I take it for granted that the shows are going to be great because they're always great.
Mm-hmm.
I take it for granted that the PA system is going to work because otherwise that would mean there are so many incompetent people between the soundboard and that microphone that I'm the least of their problems.
Right.
So, as I said, I don't suffer fools gladly. I don't like people, I don't respect people who promise you a job and do not deliver or deliver a half-assed job.
Right.
I really don't like that.
Okay.
And that ineptitude is the only thing that bothers me about the road or about my doctor's office or about getting a Jiffy Lube or anything else.
Right.
If you do your job, if you say that's what you do it well, be killer at it, and I have all the respect for you in the world. I will gladly pay you what you deserve on any level.
Yeah.
But if you don't deliver on your promises, if you're a disappointment in any way, if you're less than great, if you're giving 92% of yourself, if you're not sweating your balls off, something's wrong. Why are you holding back? Are you holding back for tomorrow? Are you saving it? This is the stuff that I couldn't get my mind past when Harry died. Why do you save this stuff? Why does anybody hold back anything? Why doesn't everybody give 100% all the time? It doesn't take any more out of you, really. You're already there. You're on the stage.
Right.
The lights are on you. The people are watching you. 92% is not good enough. Do it. Just fucking do it and love it and soak it in and enjoy it, because the other 23 and a half hours of the day could suck.
Yeah.
And the only half an hour that I know with any authority is going to really be good and fun for me is the half an hour on stage.
Yeah.
So the rest of life is a gamble. The show is not. It's the easiest part of my day.
Right.
It should be the easiest part of any entertainer's day.
Yeah.
And the thing you most look forward to. For me, it's that and a close tie with just being at home and not doing anything at all.
Okay.
You know, except living my life and going to the dentist and, you know, getting the car done and taking the dog for his, you know, classes. And I've been doing this since 17 years old. So I figure that, you know, 50 years of doing it, yeah, now's a
you're
good
entitled
time
to kind of have like nothing to do for a while.
for a minute.
Yeah.
As long as you can prove yourself if you can slam 60 shows in there, and you're entitled to do anything you want.
Sure.
The way I look at it, you can spread them out over the course of the year.
And you're not running out of money.
No, I'm fine. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it, and I don't. Nor do I need for money. I don't need for anything. I don't want the bigger house or the bigger car.
I see.
And that's what takes a little bit of wisdom. You've got to know that envy is a killer, especially in show business. There's always going to be somebody bigger, younger, newer, stronger, faster, better.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a Justin Timberlake around every corner. You're always
No matter
the
who you
old
are.
guy.
Right.
Always. And if you think that, you know, physically 40 is a hurdle, you know, 66 is a huge hurdle.
Well, mentally 40 was a hurdle for me. Physically, I'm all right.
Yeah, see, I never got that. I don't think I ever really equated age with success in any way.
It wasn't a success. It wasn't just when at my party when they brought the cake out and I saw those candles, the 4-0 coming at me.
Oh.
It was like, oh, you gotta be fucking kidding.
That's very Wes Craven the way you described it. No, that's a horror story, man. You cut into the cake and blood comes out.
Right.
No, man.
But I feel so much smarter and wiser and stronger in a lot of ways. I'm in better shape physically than I was for a lot of years
Well, you know,
because I take better care of myself.
V-Way
now.
Bill asked the question 40 years ago, what do you want from life?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, not just you, everybody. What do you expect from your life that you're not already getting? I mean, what do you think you have to put in to get more back? You know, it's not a bank. It doesn't work that way. It's not like logging sleep hours so that you're not, you know, too shagged out to the next show or something.
Right.
You can't live like that. It's like vitamin C. It passes through you very quickly. What do you want from life? What is your ultimate contentment in life? What does that look like to you in the future? What do you see yourself doing? Because in my future, what I see myself doing is the very house I live in, the very woman I live with, the very dog and cats that I have, and the very life I already lead. I've already achieved that. Some would say, well, then you've got nothing to look forward to. Then you cash it in. No. Now it's time to enjoy.
Enjoy that.
You know, I've done all of that back there to get to this right here so that I don't have to worry. I don't have to get up to teach anybody. I don't have to do anything that demands thought or work beyond my expertise. If I want to write, I will write. If I create something that works, I'll make money. If I don't create something that doesn't stand a chance out there, I think I'll know it and pull it back before I release it. I think I'm smart enough to know bad from good. I would never want anything with my name on it that didn't live up to my own expectations.
Sure.
And I think that I'm in a good place mentally to still be creative in the 9 months I have off every year.
Yeah.
And to really, truly enjoy what I've set myself up for the last 50 years. I don't want to be one of those guys who at the age of 70 says, I'm retiring, everybody, and then Social Security starts coming in, and then you fall over, and you're dead.
Right.
And all that you've put into it, and all the thought, and all the time, and what am I going to do with my soul? And it's meaningless because you've spent all your time worrying about it. You know, and in John Lennon's words, you know, life is what happens while you're busy making plans, other plans. Well, I've made my other plans. They've worked out very well, and now I'm at the apex where I feel I'm entitled to a little enjoyment for my time.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I've been semi-retired since the age of 17. And now I really want to tell the world that it's great to do that. anybody who can do that, do it. Take that opportunity. Break your band up. You got enough money? Be Michael Stipe. What difference does
Walk
it
away
make?
from it, yeah.
Walk away.
Go do
When you're
something
at
else
the
with
peak of everything golden, walk away. You know, I refuse to. I still like kind of doing the summer stuff because I know it's a tunnel with a 3-month entrance.
Yeah.
And I can see the light from the first day, and I check them off one at a time.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like homework assignments. You know, we're almost done with our summer school.
Right.
And I can
But
get
you
back
still
to my
enjoy
reality.
it. I don't get the
Yeah, I
impression
love
that
it.
you're like counting, like, get me the hell out of here. Like you really
No,
you're
no.
enjoying it, but
Put me at a Ramada Inn in Mitchell.
Yeah.
Get me the hell out of there. I mean, some days better than
well,
other
yeah,
days,
that's
John.
for everybody.
But yeah,
That's for everybody. But I
it's-
see what you mean.
We got ourselves, all of us, got ourselves into a really good place here on this tour.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't take it for granted. And
Yeah.
I don't take it for granted. And we've done this a very, very long time. And I'm still glad to be doing it. I'll do it as long as somebody wants me to do it and I'm physically able. And the rest of the time, you know where I'll be.
Yes. Cool, man. I think that's it.
I think that's it too. I've got nothing profound here to say, nor will I cry.
Okay.
I can't. And I don't have any advice for anybody because I think that's a fool's game.
Okay.
Radio 418.
That's a fool's game, he said at the end as he put the mic down. He was done. We were both done. I wasn't about to make him repeat that. Did you say that again? Because I don't think it came out on the tape. And he's still at it. Happy Together Tour is out as we speak. And my buddy Barry Waller is crushing it in the bass chair on that one this year. And I wrote to Howard and I said, I'm reposting our interview. Anything new you want me to add? He goes, nope, nothing new. Still at it, still doing it. As a musician, if you have a chance to work with some cats who are a little bit older, who've seen a little bit more than you have, I suggest you do it, man. A lot to learn from those guys. So I'm looking forward to sharing more of my conversations with the Happy Together Tour principals in the weeks and months to come. The website for the podcast is radio418.com. You can subscribe at radio418.com with a Podbean account, or you can stream the episodes from radio418.com, or you can subscribe on iTunes if that's how you roll. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/John Montagna Music. Instagram is John Montagna. Follow me on Twitter at JohnMon, JONMON. Facebook.com/Radio418. But anything and everything you want to know about me and what I'm doing with my music and all that other mother jazz is at my website, johnmontagna.com. Thank you so much for listening to Radio 418. I will see you on the next one. Be well.